Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Barakahak Wadash, Barakathum. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule and teach well. And peace and salutations to you sincere Akim out there, pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure to the end. Shalom. This is the brother Ra'aya coming at you with another lesson. And I'm going to start it off in Matthew chapter 24, verse 7. And this was Yahweh Shai, the Son of the Most High, whom the world ignorantly refers to as so-called Jesus, telling his disciples of the signs to look for, to know that his second coming was nigh and the kingdom of heaven was at hand. And when Yahweh Shai came on the scene, that started the last days. But right now, we are at the cusp of all these things, the last seconds of the last days. And as it says in Romans chapter 15, everything written aforetime was written for our learning. Yahweh Shai was really speaking to his disciples for the times we're in right now. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. And all these things are either in the process of taking place or taking place as we speak, and they're only going to intensify from here on out. As it says in verse 8, all these are the beginning of sorrows. But what I'm going to focus on with this lesson is nation rising against nation, or different races, tribes going against each other. There will be racial conflicts taking place in the last days, and we can already see, these tensions are brewing, not just in the United States of America, but in, a lot of other Western countries as well, which is what I'll be focusing with over in Europe. But I'll be profiling two clips from the YouTube channel, Ex-British Army, Paz 49's YouTube channel. In the first video, Europe is about to explode. And this is a fair use copyright disclaimer. I do not own any of the footage in this clip, nor do I stand to gain from it monetarily. It is simply for educational purposes. And if you've been keeping up with the news over in Western Europe and the UK lately, over the last couple of years, due to a lot of these foreign wars, in the Middle East and Central Asia and, North Africa, you've had a lot of refugees from those war zones flooding into Europe. And, the governments of these different countries have been helping them out more than, their regular citizens there. And, that's all by design. The elites, who run these politicians want to create this chaos and division. But regardless, it all plays into nations rising against nations, because you're seeing a lot of, these different European Edomites and these different Western countries, starting to rise up because they're sick of, the threats they perceive from those immigrants in their countries, and they see that their governments are throwing them under the bus while taxing them to death.
Hello again, friends. Welcome back to the channel. Thank you all for subscribing. Now, buckle up, because Europe's on the edge, and it's not a pretty sight. Take a look around. Spain, Ireland, France, Portugal, and right here in Britain. What do you see? Chaos. Tension so thick you could cut it with a butter knife. Streets simmering, tempers flaring, and communities fractured. We're not just close to mass rioting over migration. We're a hair's breadth away. One spark, one incident, and the whole continent could go up like a tinderbox. And what's the EU doing about it? Oh, you're going to love this. Are they urgently addressing the issue, facing down the European Court of Human Rights, that unelected gang of wig-wearing busybodies who think borders are just lines on a map? Closing the floodgates to stem the tide of unchecked migration? Nope. They're sitting on their hands, all of them, sipping overpriced coffee in Brussels, waiting for Europe to collapse under the weight of their own spinelessness. Look at Spain. Migrants pouring in, boats landing like it's a bloody holiday cruise. Locals are at their wits' end. Hotels packed with newcomers while tourists are told to sod off. Ireland, same story. Small town swamped, housing stretched to breaking point, and people shouting into the void for someone to listen. France, don't get me started. Riots are practically a national sport now, and the police are playing whack-a-mole with mobs while Macron prances about pretending it's all fine. Portugal, too, communities buckling, resources drained, and the same old script. Diversity is our strength. Yeah, tell that to the folks who can't get to doctor's appointments or a school place for their kids. And here in the UK, well, we're not exactly basking in harmony, are we? Knife crimes through the roof, grooming gangs still haunting our nightmares, and entire neighbourhoods where you'd be forgiven for thinking you've wandered into a different country. The social contract's in tatters, and the people are fed up. You can feel it on the streets, in the pubs, on X, social media. The anger's real, and it's not going away. So what's the EU's grand...
Hey, and besides, it being a part of prophecy with the nations rising against nations, it's also in prophecy that these, Western European Edomites would never mix, with these other nations of people coming into Western Europe, no matter how much, they want to integrate and consider themselves, so-called British, German, Spanish. They are always going to be looked at as the other. This is Daniel chapter 2. I'm going to start at verse 40. And this is dealing with the vision of a statue of a man made out of different metals that King Nebuchadnezzar of the Neo-Babylonian Empire saw in a dream, and that the prophet Daniel interpreted. And those different parts of that statue and their corresponding metals represented the different heathen kingdoms that would rule before the kingdom of heaven. You had the head of gold, which was the Neo-Babylonian Empire, the arms and chest of silver, the Medo-Persians, the belly and the thighs of brass, the Grecian Edomite empires, and the legs of iron, the ancient pagan Edomite Roman Empire, which is where we're going to start at. And as you can see, Blue Letter Bible has put a header showing you what each part corresponded with. Rome, Daniel 2 and 40. And the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron, for as much as iron breaketh in pieces and subdueth all things, and as iron that breaketh all these shall it break in pieces and bruise. The ancient pagan Roman Empire. Verse 41. And now we're going to those feet and toes of iron mixed with miry clay. And if Rome was iron, then what? This is a continuation of Rome, which is this current system we're in right now, this NATO EU system, the Western world, which the U.S. is a part of and at the head of. And this all began with Esau Edom, the so-called white man, coming back into power during the Renaissance, or the rebirth of that Roman way back into the world. And whereas thou sawest the feet and toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron. And the iron and clay can go into two things. The iron can represent NATO, the military aspect, and the clay, the EU, the European Union, or the financial, the economic aspect. And when you go to Habakkuk chapter 2 and get that word thick clay, I think it's in Habakkuk 2 verse 7 or 6, it talks about debts or heavy pledges, showing that clay is related to what? The economy and money. The kingdom shall be divided. And the iron and clay can also go into the iron being the stronger nations, such as the US, Britain, France, your Germanys, and the weaker nations, the clay, which they refer to usually as the pigs, Portugal, Italy, Ireland, Greece, and Spain. And as I said, the kingdom shall be divided. And even outside of this immigration issue, we can see that this system is divided against itself. With the immigration issue, the economic situation, with those sanctions getting thrown on Ukraine, and the U.S., forcing a lot of these European nations to go against their own interests, to go against Russia. And Slovakia. And hey, just these European nations even going against the U.S. because they're getting sick and tired of being bullied around by the U.S. I just watched a video the other day by Lena Petrova talking about how the U.S. is going to make it more, stringent for these European nations to hold U.S. Treasury bonds, to where it's going to be more of a detriment to them to hold it. And they want to, Trump administration wants to lower, the value of the U.S. dollar to make it more competitive, which is going to go completely, at odds with her European allies. So, hey, this kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it of the strength of iron, for as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay. And as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken, not unified on all fronts, which I just gave a few examples showing, divisions within this system. And then even within the citizens, with this immigration issue, you've got the average everyday, European, bucking up against those in the government because they see that they're not working towards their best interests. But this is the point I wanted to get to in verse 43. And whereas thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men. And this is talking about these other heathen nations outside of the Edomites, such as these refugees and immigrants flooding into Europe. Europe, just like America, likes to have that image of democracy and equality and what? Diversity is our strength. But they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with the clay. But the average everyday European and, the British Edomite is not with that. Hence, why you're seeing, all this friction, which as we read back in Matthew 24, verse 8, all these are the beginning of sorrows. It's only going to intensify and get more violent as we get closer and closer to Jacob's trouble fully popping off.
Plan? Wait for it. Nothing. Not a sausage. They're too busy polishing their halos, preaching about human rights while ignoring the rights of their own citizens to feel safe in their own homes. The ECHR's got them by the short and curlies, dictating that deporting anyone is practically a war crime. Borders? What borders? The EU's idea of border control is a welcome mat and a complimentary espresso. They won't act until the whole place is in flames, and even then, they'll probably blame the locals for being intolerant. Let's be clear, this isn't about hating migrants, it's about numbers, resources and reality. You can't invite half the world to your party when the fridge is empty and the house is already packed. But try telling that to the EU elites who think integration is a magic wand you wave while chanting buzzwords. They're not living in the real world, they're in their ivory towers, insulated from the consequences of their own policies. The clock's ticking, folks. Europe's at a breaking point. The people aren't stupid, they see what's happening, and they're not going to sit quietly while their countries are turned upside down. If the EU doesn't pull its finger out, and soon, it won't just be protests, it'll be chaos. And when that happens, don't say we didn't warn them. They'll just be too busy rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic to notice. So there we go. Until the next time, I'm Paz49. Thanks for...
Hey, if nothing's done, which nothing will be done, there's going to be chaos. But I'm going to get 2nd Esdras chapter 9. I'm going to start at the top. He answered me then and said, Measure thou the time diligently in itself, which is what the men of the Lord, the prophets of the Most High, chiefly of GMS or Great Millstone, as well as the brothers that come in the spirit of GMS are doing, by reading the scriptures and watching the news and filtering the news through the scriptures to go out onto the highways and byways to preach this word, as well as putting up video epistles like this. And when thou seest part of the signs past, which I have told thee before, then shalt thou understand that it is the very same time wherein the highest will begin to visit the world which he made, which we're currently in right now. And Yahweh Bahashem Yahushua is visiting this world and these people in it for their wickedness. Therefore, when there shall be seen earthquakes, back in Matthew 24, earthquakes in diverse places, which major earthquakes are happening damn near daily all across the planet, and uproars of the people in the world, which we're currently going into with that immigration crisis that's brewing over in Europe. Then shalt thou well understand that the Most High spake of those things from the days that were before thee, even from the beginning. For like as all that is made in the world hath a beginning and an end, and the end is manifest. But now I'm going to go to my second clip just to further show how the end is manifesting right before our very eyes. And it's also from ex-British Army Paz 49's YouTube channel, England's at Boiling Point. Again, fair use copyright disclaimer. I do not own any of the footage in this clip, nor do I stand to gain from it monetarily. It is simply for educational purposes.
Well, here we go again, folks, in the land of tea, biscuits and a government that's apparently decided the best way to keep the peace is to chuck petrol on the fire, the Epping protest. So what a spectacle it was, and it'll continue as well. Apparently there's more planned for the weekend. The great British public pushed to the brink, out in the streets, because, surprise, surprise, nobody in Westminster seems to give a toss about what they think. And let me tell you, the kettle's not just whistling, it's about to blow the bloody lid off. So what's got the good people of Epping so riled up? Unconfirmed reports, because of course the media's too busy polishing their halos to dig into the truth, say a migrant's been accused of attacking a young girl. Locals aren't having it. They're out there squaring off with police who, by the way, thought it'd be a cracking idea to ram vans into protesters and lob flashbang grenades like they're auditioning for a Hollywood blockbuster. Nice one, lads. The thing says community policing, like treating our own people like they're the enemy. The same British police, ladies and gents, who either bent the knee or ran away from Black Lives Matter rioters in London years ago, have no problem mowing down Brits in their vans. Go figure. Now, I'm not here to stir the pot though, let's be honest, it's already bubbling over. The UK's been a pressure cooker for years. Politicians with their heads so far up their own manifestos can't see what's staring them in the face. People are sick to death of being ignored. Immigration policies that make no sense to anyone with a functioning brain. Crime that's swept under the rug, and a justice system that's about as useful as a chocolate teapot. And when folks start finally snapping, what do they get? Riot police, egg-covered pro-migrant banner wavers, and a lecture about tolerance. Tolerance, as if the British people haven't been bending over backwards for decades, while their concerns are dismissed as bigotry. And here's the thing, and I'll say it plainly, when you treat people like their voices don't matter, when you let crime fester and then protect the perpetrators instead of the victims, you're not building society, you're building a bomb. Epping's just the latest fuse. The anger's not just about one incident though, it's about a system that's been spitting in the face of ordinary folks for too long. And now what do we see? Crowds breaching migrant hotels, police on the back foot, and a nation teetering on the edge of something nobody wants but everyone saw coming. The powers that be.
This is 2 Esdras chapter 15. I'm going to start at verse 14. Woe to the world and them that dwell therein, for the sword and their destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another, and that one people against another goes into many things, one race against another, nation against nation, class warfare, political warfare, civil unrest, a legal versus illegal citizen, etc., etc., and swords in their hands. And in the United States of America, that sword is going to be the gun. But, over in these European countries where it's harder to get guns like that, you're going to have people with literal swords, knives, sticks, bats, clubs, Molotov cocktails, etc., etc. And as Army Paz just said, hey, this is a ticking time bomb ready to explode. For there shall be sedition among men. And the definition for sedition is conduct or speech inciting open rebellion against a ruling authority or monarch. And as we're seeing, these Europeans are bucking up to these government immigration policies. And, in a they've been bucking up to a lot of other policies as well, you know, in the economy, you know, the war, you know, situation with the war in Ukraine, etc., etc. For there shall be sedition among men and invading one another. It's going to go from throwing words at each other to throwing rocks, you know, Molotov cocktails, lead, you name it. They shall not regard their kings nor princes. And your modern day kings and princes are those in the government, you know, your mayors, governors, the senator, president, prime minister, you name it. And the course of their actions shall stand in their power. And people are going to do what they think's in their best interest in the days to come. Oh, and those kings and princes also include the authorities like the police or the military that uphold the system as well.
Our illustrious leaders, those champions of democracy, have the nerve to act shocked as if they didn't spend years poking the bear with a stick. You don't keep telling people to shut up and take it while their communities crumble and expect them to sit quietly with a cup of tea. The British aren't daft. They've had enough of the double standards, the excuses and the sanctimonious drivel from politicians who'd rather grovel to every left-wing woke pressure group than stand up for the people who elected them. And let's not kid ourselves, this isn't about Epping. This is every town, every city, every corner of the UK where people are looking at each other and saying, right, that's it. You know, the trust is gone. Gone with the police, gone with the politicians, gone with the media who will call you a thug for daring to care about your own kids' safety. Civil unrest, it's brewing all right. You don't need a crystal ball to see where this is headed. You know, if someone doesn't pull the finger out and start listening. So what's the answer? Well, it's not more vans, more grenades, or more sanctimonious claptrap about diversity. It's about facing reality. It's about leaders who have the guts to admit that mass immigration without integration is a recipe for disaster. It's about a justice system that put victims first, not ideology. And it's about giving the British people, decent, hard-working folks, a reason to believe their country still belongs to them. But don't hold your breath. The clowns in charge will probably just double down, call everyone a fascist, and hope it all blows over. Well, spoiler alert, it won't. The UK is at boiling point, and Epping's just the first bubble to burst. Keep ignoring the steam and you'll get scolded. This country's teetering on the edge, folks. It really is at boiling point. People are angry and no one's listening to them. And it's all heading towards a conflict, a terrible, deadly conflict. I can see it coming. I don't want it to happen, and neither do the people, which makes me think maybe it's the powers that be that want it to happen. Who knows? What do you reckon? Let me know in the comments. And there we go, I'm past 49. Thanks for watching.
And all these are just the beginning of sorrows, and there's no going back, only going forward to judgment. But I'm going to close it out in 2 Esdras chapter 13, verse 31. And one shall undertake to fight against another, one city against another, which I believe in over in Ireland, when they were having racially charged protests and riots. I believe it was over Irish going against Armenians. You know, they in different towns, you know, they were going against, you know, their Armenian residents there. One place against another, one people against another, nation against nation, and one realm against another. So, hey, division is the name of the game. And, hey, the game is, going to be played until the end. But, yeah, that's it with this video. With this video, I hope you sincere Akim and Akwath were edified. Just keep strong. We are almost out of this final wicked captivity of the heathen nations, chiefly of the Edomites. And as always, I'm going to say Abad Babol, Kwam Yasharallah, and until next time, Shalom.